In the past, India was known for its great cultural achievements in fields such as science and math, architecture, music, linguistics, and medicine. The legacy of the great past continues to shine, as it remains a great influence on everyday life. However, behind all the great cultural accomplishments of India lies a dark and shameful secret.
The practice of female infanticide in India has persisted for generations, but the Indian government denied its existence up until 1992. Although the origins of this practice remain a mystery, most historians believe that the practice started as a result of cultural influence and economic pressure. It is more of a burden to have a girl than a boy because of the dowry their family must present at the time of their marriage. Thus, as a result, the ratio between girls to boys is becoming more skewed, making it harder for grown men to find a wife.
Cultural factors and ineffective solutions imposed by the Indian government are the causes for the continued practice of female infanticide.
One of the contributing factors to the continued practice of infanticide in India is the practice of dowry. The dowry is presented by the bride at the time of marriage and represents the wealth of the bride. The average dowry is said to cost about 50,000 rupees or $35,000 US. Therefore, for many families who only earn an average of a little more than $1 US a day, having a girl brings an economic burden to the family. As a result, many families choose to do a sex-selective abortion instead of paying for their own daughter's dowry.
Superstition also plays a large role in the continued practice of infanticide. In rural villages, villagers hold a firm belief that if they kill their infant daughter, their next child will be a boy. Therefore, many families pressure the mothers to kill their infant daughter right after they give birth. Some mothers bury their daughters alive in the dirt hours after they are born. Others use a smoke solution that is made out of crushed smoked plant leaves and feed it to the baby. However, this process does not kill the baby right away, but instead it prolongs the suffering of the baby for hours on end. In the next interview, an Indian father discusses his reason for killing his baby.
You took a small baby alive and you buried her. How could you do that? Look, I've done it, sir. I've done it. The girl is alive in the hospital. What do you want to do now? Are you going to take her back? We already have 7 girls. What can we do? You don't want her back from the hospital? Give her to anybody. How can I take her back? I already have so many daughters. I couldn't bring her up. That's why I did it. Since many of these methods have already been exposed to the Indian government, many Indian families are discovering newer and more effective ways to kill their infant daughter. One of the newer methods includes wrapping the infant in a wet, cold blanket and sending them to the hospital, claiming that they have pneumonia. The hospital would prescribe medicine to treat the pneumonia, but instead of giving the baby the medicine, they would just leave it to die, and would claim that the real cause of death was pneumonia and not the doing of the parents.
Another leading factor to the continued practice of infanticide is the age-old cultural preference for men. In India, women are considered polluted and impure, while men are held on a greater pedestal. As a result, men are often seen as the breadwinners of the family because they are the main sources of income. While their sole responsibility is to bring home money, women are instructed to care for the home and family and obey all that their husband instructs. As tradition, men are also responsible for caring for their parents and carrying on the family name.
Even though mothers are the usual culprits of infanticide, they are also victims to this crime. Most mothers are pressured into killing their own baby, and upon doing so, many are overcome with remorse and guilt. They often question why they did it, and what would have happened if they did keep their baby girl.
I spent 11 years with him. It was he who gave me the first feelings of motherhood. He didn't want another girl. I was forced to have an ultrasound scan. Then I was 5 months pregnant and I was forced to abort. At 5 months, it's very dangerous. The fetus had developed into a fully formed girl. In our family, another girl would not have been a difficulty. There were no financial problems. That mentality is very common. I see a lot of families around me that want sons to run their empires, to carry on the family name. For them, a girl will go away to her in-laws. The money will leave with her. She won't bring wealth. Although the Indian government failed to realize this crime at first, The Indian government now realizes that with the continued effects of infanticide, a population crisis could arise in India. In the latest census taken in 2001, the child sex ratio was 92 girls per 100 boys, compared to the one taken in 1992, which was 94 girls per 100 boys. If the sex ratio in India becomes any more skewed, men will have an even harder time to find a proper wife.
Ever since the Indian government has recognized the growing problem of infanticide, they have created many laws in hopes of combating the dilemma. However, in many rural areas, national laws are not influential enough to change religious and social customs. In 2003, when the Indian government proposed to prohibit all genetic counseling facilities, clinics, and labs from divulging the sex of the fetus and successfully ending sex-selective abortions, they were met with great opposition. Those who opposed the laws argued that the technology was needed to successfully monitor fetal health.
Another law that was made to combat infanticide in India is the anti-dowry law. However, instead of successfully ending infanticide, it is causing more problems. Women who are aware of this law are using the power of the law to abuse their husbands and are also increasing the number of martial cases filed under the Dowry Prohibition Act in India. Bans on sex-selective abortions are also not effective because abortion is a lucrative and profitable business that many doctors do not want to see curtailed.
When the anti-infanticide laws are prosecuted, the evidence presented at trial is ineffective. In many cases, reports regarding infanticide are often told to the police days after the crime is committed and affects the chances of a successful prosecution. The Indian police also uses the threat of reporting infanticide cases as a way to get bribes from families. When a complaint is actually made, arrests are made right away, and since many of the Indian women are illiterate and ignorant of the law, they confess their non-existent crimes to the police. Sometimes the police even torture the women to get a confession from them.
When these cases are brought to trial, often word-of-mouth statements are considered proper evidence. Medical examinations or reports from doctors are also considered evidence, even though the doctors themselves don't appear in court. In such cases, women use state advocates to help them fight for their causes, but often they would abandon these cases if something else comes up. Lawyers also do not meet up with the women in custody and rely on false statements made against them to defend their client.
The lack of government participation in programs created by non-government organizations, NGOs, also causes for little progress to be made. NGOs have created programs that dwell into the underlying causes for male preference and the infanticide of female daughters through interviewing actual Indian civilians. As a result, they are able to develop effective solutions, but only on an individual basis because they hold very little influence in the communities that they work in. In addition to the hostility that they are faced with, NGOs also face the problem of long-term funding. Thus, it forces unrealistic goals on NGOs to get support and makes it difficult for any long-term solutions to be made.
When the Indian government and NGOs have worked together to combat female infanticide, the response has been positive. The soap opera Majad, funded by the international charity Plan with the help of the Indian government, has changed the opinion of many civilians. This soap opera looks at the prenatal and anti-dowry laws, issues that come from gender and poverty, and describes the effects of violence on women and the problems that occur if there are too few women. When Indian civilians were asked to respond to the soap opera, many said that the soap opera opened their eyes to the severity of female feticide and gave them a better understanding of the laws. One man even said that it gave him a better understanding of the pressures that women are faced with and made it easier for him to relate with his wife.
Female infanticide takes its toll on everyone in India. The skewed gender ratio that is an effect of this practice will make it harder for India's men to find a suitable wife. This custom will be a constant reminder for the civilians in India that girls can never hold the same ground as men. They will always be seen with disdain and contempt and will never be seen as a jewel of the family. Mothers who have killed their own daughter will never be able to live through a day without thinking about them. Although the Indian government and many non-profit organizations have tried to end infanticide, their attempts have been done in vain. As each year passes, the gap between the number of girls to boys increases, and every day, girls live with no hope that their lives will improve.